Okay, this is it. Last play posit for the Odyssey. Um, Bunch of chapters. Let's start getting through it. All right. So again, like chapter 22 is the big chapter where all the revenge happens. We'll get to that. The couple chapters leading up to that, I feel like they kind of drag. Like we're kind of getting ready. Okay, there's a little bit of tension. Like, okay, here it comes. But it's not really until chapter 21 that I feel like, again, personal opinion, that you really start feeling it. Once the trial of the axes, then it's like, oh, this is actually happening finally. But it's an epic. It is very epic in length. So, but here's some preparation. We've got Odysseus. He's interviewing Penelope. This is before she knows. She doesn't know it's him, that he's back, until the very last chapter. Um, and so we'll get to that. There is a little bit of like anticipation here. Telemachus hides the armor, so it's like, oh, well, we have a plan. We're not just hanging out and you know thinking about killing the suitors. They're actually starting to move in that direction. So Telemachus hides the armor. They end up getting it back, but at least it's something to make us think, ooh, we're moving forward here. Euryclea shuts the women up in the rooms, so that they're not exposed to all the violence. She also recognizes Odysseus' scar, to which makes him very angry. He like threatens her, like, you better not say anything to anybody that this is me. So, Melantho's still being rude. The maids that didn't do what they're supposed to, or didn't act the way they're supposed to, are gonna have their own punishment as well. We'll get to that. Um, Yeah, so Penelope talks to Odysseus. She doesn't know that it's Odysseus, but it's Odysseus. So there's a little dramatic irony there, right? But it's more of the same stuff. The heroes, remember that um, the heroes are a little bit different in the time this was written. It's not simply all the strength and bravery and all that kind of stuff. It's also smarts, it's intelligence, it's wit. And so the fact that they're not just running into this, like, they're planning for it. They're making sure the odds are stacked in their favor. Also, Odysseus has a lot of concerns. He even going into the middle of the big fight, he's not sure if he's going to win. They get their armor back. He feels like, oh no, what's going to happen? So the heroes are a little bit different. They're not just I don't know. I mean, when I was growing up, it was the '80s action heroes like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. Like, that's not exactly. There's more to it, to these old timey heroes, these old schoolers. In any case, there's more of the lies. Some of these stories are just super excessive. They just go on for pages and pages, and it's like, do we really need all that? But so he says, make some excuse when the suitors ask you why you have removed the armor. So but it's necessary. It's like they're justifying why they're telling these lies, and that one makes sense. But then he talks to his own wife, and he's just making up these stories. Madam, wife of Odysseus, since you persist in asking me about my family, I will answer. And he just goes on and on and on and on and on and on. Like, it's so detailed, his lie. It's kind of crazy. But again, she needs to not know. At least that's the idea. Whether she actually needs to not know, that's, you can argue that. Um, and then these dreams, these are you see a bunch of these in throughout the Odyssey, where the gods visit people, um, or there's a premonition. Now he could just be making that up and saying, oh yeah, this is a vision, it's an omen, when really it's not. But it turns out it is, right? Because we know what happens at the end. I mean, if you've read. Um, he says, this is no dream, but a vision of good omen that shall surely come to pass. These geese are suitors. This is where the geese get slaughtered. And I am no longer an eagle, but your own husband, who have come back and who will bring the suitors to a disgraceful end. So okay, more of the same, Book 20, we got to have dinner before death, right? So this is the final, it's the Last Supper, if you will. So Odysseus can't think or can't sleep rather. He's thinking of killing the suitors. So he has to get visited by Athena, who kind of, first she scolds him. She's like, "What? I've been with you the entire time. You still don't trust me?" And then she just kind of puts him to sleep. But, as she does. Meanwhile, Penelope is praying and she asks for signs and she gets a couple. I mean, you would think thunder's enough since Zeus is the god of thunder. And if there's no storm and all of a sudden you're like, show me signs, like, yeah, no, that's not good enough. I need something else. And then the miller woman makes some kind of noise. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's okay. Thunder, nah. But, oh, miller woman, say something. Okay, that works for me. Phalodius talks to Odysseus about how horrible suitors are. Phalodius seems to kind of come out of nowhere. Like, who is this person? And then plays a pretty major part in the last, death killing suitor scene. But maybe we'll try and develop his character here. Ctesippus is the one who throws the cow's foot at Odysseus, and Odysseus kind of goes, as he does. Ageless, so he's the priest, right? I think. He's the one that tries to get all the suitors to like relax. He's like, hey, calm down, all this kind of stuff. And you think, oh, this guy's being a good guy. Maybe they'll spare him. We'll get to that. Theoclymenus, this one's kind of strange. So you think he's going to have a big role at the end. I think I actually said he was going to have a big role at the end. No, he just is kind of there to build suspense. Like, something's not right here. Everybody's going to die. I got to go. And he just runs away. And that's it. We never see him again. That's weird. Then what was the whole point of picking him up? And just so that he could say, watch out, you're all in big trouble? Okay. But okay, more of the same. I mean, really, we're just waiting to get to chapter 22. But okay, the gods are still in charge. We know that. Athena says, am I not a goddess? Have I not protected you throughout your troubles? And she's going to continue. Athena would not let the suitors for one moment drop their insolence, for she wanted Odysseus to become still more bitter against them. She's really controlling the whole thing, the whole situation. She's like the puppet master, right? She's making people act a certain way so that Odysseus's, anger will pop up, and that way he can take care of business when he needs to. Okay, so finally we get to, I think this is where it really starts to pick up. Because that, it's coming soon if the trial of the Axis is coming. So Athena's the one, again, she's in control of everything. She puts the trial of the Axis idea in Penelope's head, right? And she's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a nice little, and whoever can do it, So they have to string together this bow, like bend the actual, piece of wood so that the bow is there and then you can shoot it. But then that's only part of it. You're going to line up a bunch of axes that have this small little hole throughout, on the top, bottom, or something. I think they kind of put it in the ground, and then at the bottom of the hilt, there's like a little hole, and then you have to shoot an arrow so that it goes through all the holes. Like it's impossible, right? So that's what Penelope does. Telemachus has, he still hates how the suitors are acting. Antinous tries to stop Odysseus because everybody tries to, they grease it up and they make it warm so the wood will bend, and but nobody, they're not strong enough to thread the string through the bow. And then Odysseus, who's still in the form of an old man, is like, hey, can I try? And he's like, no, who are you? Get out of here. And of course, Penelope and Telemachus say, yeah, no, this is going to happen. He's Leodes is the Leiodes. He's the sacrificial priest. Yeah, he's the one. It says he was the only man who hated their evil deeds. Sorry, it wasn't the other guy. It was this guy. And you would think, he's a priest, right? They're gonna let him go, right? Uh, Odysseus tells Eumaeus and Philodeus who he really is, so he's got to, he needs some backup. It's not just going to be Telemachus and Odysseus. Now they've got two more people, and the swineherd. Who knew that a swineherd would be a good person in like wartime? Like I think it's like 118 versus 4. At least that was the number they gave before in previous chapters. But okay, he's got some backup now. So they're there. And then the one thing in this chapter is like, and we talked about this, I think this is in the intro video. It said that, the hero, according to Joseph Campbell, that whole thing about the hero's journey, he has a special weapon that's given to him. So, you think of like King Arthur and the sword, right? The sword and the stone. He's the only one that can lift it out and wield that weapon. Even modern day, Maui with his hook, and probably nobody remembers Merida, but she had a bow and arrow from Brave. This is very typical, even nowadays, for the hero to have like their own special weapon that nobody else can use. So here, nobody can string the bow, right? Only Odysseus can. It says, but Odysseus, when he had taken it up and examined it all over, he strung it as easily as a skilled bard strings a new peg of his lyre, and makes the twisted gut fast at both ends. Then he took it in his right hand to prove the string, and it sang sweetly under his touch, like the twittering of a swallow. At that moment, moreover, Zeus thundered loudly. So that, I mean, as if it wasn't enough. I mean, think about how epic this is. Everybody's like, and they can't do anything. And he's like, done. And all of a sudden, like if the suitors are clueless, they don't see their own doom coming. How could you not? I mean, this is such a cinematic moment, even though this was 2,000 years before cinema. But all right, let's get to the Blood Rage. By the way, if anyone plays that board game, you're awesome. I haven't played it yet, but I can't wait. All right. So I've been getting into board games, moving past King of Tokyo. All right. No, I haven't tried Gloomhaven or Scythe yet. I'm getting there. So the characters. Well, we get the 4 versus the whole bunch, right? There's 2 survivors. It's the bard Phemius. He's like, look, I was just entertaining people, and Telemachus vouches for him and also for Medon. And Telemachus says, well, he's always been good to me when I was a kid. So they get to survive. All the other shooters died. Now, I don't know if all 118 were there, but when Odysseus, it might have been Telemachus, but I think it was Odysseus, was counting the number, getting worried about if they're going to be able to kill them all, which builds suspense, right? Ooh, I don't know if it's going to be possible. That's how many they counted. So, but it's Odysseus, Telemachus, Eumaeus, and Philodeus. So, okay. So here's all the dead people, and of course, way more than that. But these are the ones that are kind of highlighted, right? And notice that I think this is done on purpose. The suitor that was the rudest, kind of the ringleader, like he gets a very graphic death. Like it is pretty horrific. I'm not even going to put up a quote because I don't want to freak people out if you haven't read it. You haven't read this chapter and you love like descriptions of gory death. Like there's only 2 or 3 spread throughout, but man, it's like this is a school book. Wow. But well, maybe there's 4 or 5. But Antinous and Eurymachus seem to have been like the leaders, or at least close to it, of the suitors, and so they get kind of a more pronounced death, more descriptive, more. And I think the idea is supposed to be more satisfying to see them, get their comeuppance more than the others. A lot of them, these people, we don't even know. We're reading their names for the first time. And it's also interesting that uh, Odysseus is not the only person that's doing all the killing, right? It's what it kind of sounded like was going to happen, but no, they're kind of spread out. It's like, well, this person, you may have killed that person, and then uh, whoever what's his name? I can't remember because he's barely in this book. Phalodius, kills that person. Telemachus kills that person. So they all kind of get their own. But notice at the end here we have the Odes, and I thought that was a particularly brutal death. Like, he's begging grabbing onto Odysseus's knees. And he's like, I'm the priest and I didn't do anything to deserve this. And he's like, yeah, but if you were a priest, that means you were praying for me not to come back. And like chops his head off in mid sentence. Like the guy's still talking and just head's rolling on the ground. Like, dude, that's brutal. But I think it kind of shows that like it doesn't matter who you are, what type of person you are. If you're on the wrong side of like good, that's coming, man. So these old stories are often kind of lessons about, okay, do you want to be the suitors or do you want to be on the other side of the suitors, right? And there were two people that were spared, but it's clear that they had truly nothing to do with the suitors, right? And then you've got Melanthius, who also gets a really brutal death, and it's mostly because he kind of upends Odysseus's plan. He gets the armor back, which, as he should, if you're trying to, fight for your life. But then we've got the 12 servants, and that's again particularly brutal. Like, they get hanged. Like they have to, they come to now. It's not just all the servants, right? Like, Euryclea is asked, like, which one of these servants have been misbehaving and mistreating Penelope, and also sleeping with the suitors, and just acting in a completely inappropriate way. That being said, they didn't murder anyone. They're just bad workers, right? And they have to come down and like help move the bodies, and then they have to clean all the blood. There just must be puddles of blood everywhere. And then they're brought out together and they're all like hanged, and there's a little description of like their feet twitching and stuff. It's like, man. Okay, so let's talk about this, because the violence is, I don't know, especially for a school book, it's a little bit unnerving, I think. If you haven't read it, you should read it and just see, it's chapter 22. If you haven't read it, and just not for like entertainment, but just to see, like, does that bother you at all? Or is it like, oh, that's cool? If that was all awesome and cool, I have some good, referrals for therapists. But, um, you know, why this book particularly, revenge is dealt with in a way that we don't see in modern books. Even going as far back as the Casca Amontillado, right? It's like early 1800s when that was written. It's showing how insane people get when they have revenge. Count of Monte Cristo, same thing. Like most more current books, when they deal with revenge, it's not this big cathartic like rush where it's like, yes, I got revenge. This is, and there are movies like that. I mean, John Wick is a perfect example of like someone killed his dog. That is a revenge story with very little consequence. Like he just goes out and murders everyone, and you feel good about it, right? So there are some of those, but a lot of revenge stories nowadays, it's like, look what you become. Look, are you almost as bad as the people who you're avenging, right? But this story, there's no moral judgment against it. In fact, it's used as catharsis. Like, this is the big relief. Like, the whole time, this is all we wanted, is for him to get back and just brutalize these people. And you're supposed to feel like that's so great. Personally, I have a little bit of an issue with that. I feel very like I'm being very negative about this book now. But, it's a very old book, and I think books deserve critique. I don't think any book is like, oh, this is the greatest book ever. I got critiques for all the classics. Um, and this is my probably big one about this book. Like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right to me to feel that, celebratory about this just brutal massacre. And yeah, they've been acting inappropriately, right? They've been eating his food. So does that mean they deserve to get an arrow through the throat? I don't know. You tell me. And it's particularly bloody. Like, yeah, there have been other parts in the book that have been bloody here and there. The Cyclops sequence, but not a lot. Of all the adventures and thrills and all that kind of stuff, they saved it for this. You know, but it really shows violence as the solution. Like, this is, and no one can be spared, and this is how you solve problems. So my only answer to all this, and of course, obviously, I'm not condoning any of this, right? Um, that's why it hits me the wrong way. Is that it just doesn't seem. It's just this is not the kind of lesson we want to be teaching students, right? Just get your spear if you have a problem. Teacher gives you a grade. No, don't do that. But the only thing, it's time and culture. And this is how I've explained several of the things in this book that you may have found kind of not working really well. So, back in the time period, it was much more violent. There's very much more survivalist. People were not. It was hard to survive back then, and the culture. Not to blame like the group or the ethnicity or anything like that, but just the culture everywhere in most cultures where that's how you survived was through strength and that kind of thing. Um, and that actually I think tells us a lot about where we are now. It is a long history of violence as a solution, and now you fast forward to 2020, and in some regards that hasn't changed. And so when you have stories and culture and history and everything where so many things have been solved through violence, it becomes part of the people and how they you make things happen. So, and for the record, I wasn't planning on this getting into some kind of soapboxy lecture, but I think this deserves, if we were in class, we would have a discussion. And I think it'd be really interesting to talk to everybody about, how they feel about it. Generally, students in the past have been like, oh, dude, that part was rad, which I get. I think mostly because you don't get to read stuff like that, it's boring old books, right? But in any case, okay. Well, that's enough about that. Let's get to the last two. Okay, so chapter 23 of Odysseus and Penelope, they finally, like, after all this time, the whole purpose of this book is like he wants to get home, right? But they finally have a moment, probably more than a moment, and then basically the last page or so, Odysseus, Telemachus, Eumaeus, and Philodius leave town. They got to get out of there because they know what's coming, which is what happens in chapter 24. So we do get a little bit of a denouement, which we've talked about a little bit. It's kind of like resolution, but it's more like the tying up of the knots, tying up of loose ends, right? So Odysseus and Penelope, if you just ended with the suitors dying, it's like, well, wait a second, what about, we didn't see the resolution between Odysseus and Penelope. So they're finally able to have a moment, and then also like, well, wait a second, you just killed all these people, how many hundreds of families now don't have a dad, and that's it, you're going to leave it there? So no, we get and the denouement is not just chapter 23, it's also chapter 24. So it brings us to chapter 24. I also enjoy, and I wouldn't expect this, but it also kind of wraps things up with the suitors, right? Is that all the suitors are in hell now, and we actually see how they react. I think it's kind of a fun scene, if that can be said about a scene about hell. But and then of course the scene ends at Laertes' house. That's Odysseus' father. They go to visit him, And then the parents of the dead suitors show up and are like, hey, we're going to kill all of you, right? And then Athena has to come in and stop all of it. And some people find the last scene very unsatisfying, but let's talk about that. So for one, it's really interesting to me that the suitors are still whining, complaining, making excuses, and it wasn't our fault and all this kind of stuff. Like they never change, even after they go to hell. They're like, and they're ghosts, right? And they're still like, okay, that's kind of fun. I enjoy that. Again, it makes sense that um, the villains are villainous, right? They're evil. They're always making excuses. They're not good people, so to speak, right? Uh, and but the final scene, some people find very unsatisfactory because it seems like it just gets cut short. Like there's this big battle, and it also like we just had a big battle. Like that was the big battle scene. Why are we having another battle scene? So that seems unsatisfactory. And then, well, okay, fine, we're gonna have a battle. Let's do it, you know. But then they cut it off. And they're like, no, we're not having a battle. It's like, well, wait a second. I was all ready to, see some more blood. But I think there was a reason for this. The final scenes are always very important in a book. It kind of sets the tone, like what is the final lasting image the author wanted to leave us with. um, and here it's the gods are in charge, right? Like who knows, maybe they all would have been killed or something. But the last thing is no, the gods are in charge. She didn't want there to be war, so there wasn't a war. She wanted Odysseus to kill everybody, so he killed everybody. Like, let's not forget, we don't want to have a ending that's kind of focused on the humans. You got to end with, oh, don't forget the gods. Let's not forget about them. um, and it certainly does not feel like a Deus Ex Machina. That's another complaint that I've heard is, like all of a sudden she swoops in and saves the day out of nowhere. Well, it's not out of nowhere. She's been with him the whole time, so it's expected. In fact, if she didn't swoop in, you'd be like, Athena, were you gonna hello, you know? So that kind of makes sense. Whew. All right, that's it. So no quiz, no test on this one. I did mention at the very beginning. No essay. I still would like to put out a little bit of a survey just to kind of. I have no idea what students really thought of how well this worked, and I have no idea what's going to happen in the fall. But I think it would be useful for me to have some feedback from you, some honest feedback, and the only way to get honest feedback is by making it anonymous, right? But if it's anonymous, I can't give you points for it. So I'm just going to ask if you would, if I end up getting around to it. Hopefully I will. But I have some essays to grade. I'm sure you want your research papers graded and back to you before the end of the week. So, but if I put out a survey, if you would, I would appreciate. I'll probably put out one more video just to say, kind of, you got to have one like farewell video, right? It can't be the end of this. That's kind of anticlimactic, right? So I'll probably put out one more. I'll probably beg you to do that survey too at that point. But in any case, as always, if you have any questions, just email. But thank you. How long was that one? Oh, it's not to be a half an hour. Thank you for listening. I'll see you one more video before the summer, I think.